You're not gonna be on it?
I said no. He'll be on it.
Good brother.
All right. Okay. So I clicked on the file. It should be coming up.
Somebody asked, do you have all this compiled in like a book or a magazine or a website?
Website and an app.
An app, okay. Can you talk about that? Yeah. Can you say? Yes. Okay, okay.
Oops, excuse me. Oh, this is, yeah, you shouldn't, yeah, this is about the power. He got his piece to connect us. How much time we got also? Oh, okay. Assalamu alaikum. Maybe he's in that room. Was he?
पाकिस्तान का नाम ही नहीं और यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स 1500 यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स 15 और the first is Taiwan, second is South Korea, third is Australia, fourth is Canada. पाकिस्तान का नंबर होगा अगर 1992 में पाकिस्तान का नंबर होगा 500 यही होगा इनका नाम
Mother, I got you.
तो किसी काबिल होगा तो होगा ना बांग्लादेश is 90
Yeah, HDMI.
Should be. Yes, sir.
Sir, 90. Okay. Turn this off. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's a lot of empty chairs. Ladies and gentlemen, please move forward, take the empty seats up there.
You want a chair, man? Well, I got you on the end of the video talking.
Well, I think it's a good idea to turn them off.
Turn off the lights, but we want to see Brother Amir.
I'm good. They know me.
You can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good. It's just warming up. It's gonna get brighter.
Okay. You ready?
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this presentation by Islamic Heritage Museum. Really appreciate all the people who have come. My name is Ismail, and I assist Brother Amir Muhammad as the president of and the main curator of America's Islamic Heritage Museum. You're looking at more than 25 years of collections and work. It's really an amazing thing. So I just wanted to let you know a little bit about the thing. You're going to hear about these things, but also the resources that you can access online. One, we have a website. It's aihmuseum.org, and we're going to mention this again, but sometimes, we want to mention it multiple times. The next thing is we have an iOS app, and we're working on the Android. Some things happen with the Android app. iOS app is up. All the things that you see here, most of it is covered also in the app. So if you look up AIH Museum, you will actually see it if you have iOS, whether it be an iPad or an iPhone. And a lot of good virtual exhibits there. And other than that, I will give it to my brother Amir. And one more announcement too, we are also working on the institutional history of MCC and the oral histories of MCC. So this is the first part of a programming that we will do, and we will actually, when we finish that, we will come back and do a specific programming specifically for you. Brother Amir.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Believers at MCC. Alhamdulillah. It's been years since I've been here. But it feels like I'm coming home. Pardon me, I don't feel like I'm gonna be like Trump, but I do want to say something. These chairs, these lion strap back chairs with the gold cushion are the same chairs that the museum had. So I felt like I was coming at the museum, one of our programs. So I say, Alhamdulillah. The second thing I want to speak on is that this is the first time that this exhibit has been on display in its fullest. This is our third phase of the traveling exhibit. And what we did, we highlighted the Muslim history in America by countries. So you may see a Palestine, Pakistani, Somalian, Sudanese, Nigerian. But it's all part of American history and their contributions so that we can see the beauty of our diversity and to see that we all make up a part of American history. Even though maybe the African-American experience might have been the first experience of Muslims being here. But that experience, we see similarities in the African-American experience and our experience. The Muslim immigrants that have come out the 20th century, the 19th century, the 18th century. And that is one of persecution. You see that the first wave of Muslims that came here, we came here as explorers. You'll find West Africans came here way before Christopher Columbus in the 1300s. Mansa Musa's brother Abu Bakr traveled all throughout the Mississippi River, went through South America to the point where Christopher Columbus saw ruins of old mosques in Cuba and Panama. You'll see some ruins of the next wave you see of Muslims are those that came from the Spanish Inquisition. Those that fled the Spanish Inquisition, those that came, that was part of the persecution of the Spanish Inquisition. You'll see that some of those are called the Melungeons of the Appalachian Mountains of Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. They trace themselves in their roots to North Africa, Spain, and Morocco. You'll see it amongst the Moors of Delaware. These are some of the indigenous groups, and you'll see them, some of them even in South Carolina. And there's reports of one famous one that fought in the Revolutionary War. His name was Yusuf bin Ali. His family became known as Joseph ben Heli, and that family still exists in Sumter, South Carolina today. And part of that is, in that history, is in 1753 was the first political activity Muslims ever did. They petitioned the government of South Carolina for their freedom because the law of the land stated that if you was a Moor or a Turk, your country has a relationship with the King of England, you got the right to be free. You can't own slaves, but you got the right to be free, okay? So so we see the Spanish, so what we had during the Spanish Inquisition, prior to that, you hear in American history or Western history that they said that the world was flat. They thought the world was flat, okay? And it wasn't, and we were, in the Western world, they teach us in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But in 1492, that was the fall of Granada, the last Muslim stronghold in Andalusia or in Spain. And that is where they found the maps, how the Muslims used to travel. Okay, so then they commissioned Columbus to have the right, and he even hired a couple of Muslims as the Penzall family as Muslims to help them come over here, travel abroad. So that is some of the background that you see, from the Spanish Inquisition, and the first people to enslave us as Africans was the Portuguese. After we lost Spain and all of that, they are the group of people that started coming down and enslaving us. So there's still that same transition of racism and bigotry, okay, that produced that West African wave that came in. And they called it the African diaspora or the Atlantic slave trade. And in that Atlantic slave trade, they brought a lot of Muslims. They came in to persecuting the Muslims. That was in Mali, Timbuktu, Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, and in these regions where that you'll see in American early histories. Some of the first Hafiz here in the United States came out of Senegal. One of the brothers, Omar ibn Said, a scholar, wrote in Arabic. And they told us that the Africans, we couldn't read and write. We had no history, we had no culture. They lied to us, so you see that wave. Another wave you see is the wave that we came through what we call the fall of the Ottoman Empire, pre-World War I, pre-World War II. You see a wave of Muslims that come up what they call out of the Levant, or Syria, Lebanese, Lebanon, and Palestine area. You see a wave of them coming. I hope that give us a little background of the history. This here is a famous African over 1,100 years ago, Al Jazeera. He wrote over 200 books. And what he described was the nature of the African, being rhythmic in their tone and the dancing, strength and characteristic. And I use that sometimes, especially when I'm talking with a group of people, to get an understanding of the African and the rhythm and the spirit of the African, and from East Africa to West Africa. Here we talked already about the Muslims as coming here as explorers. We talked about the Spanish Inquisition, the Barbary Coast Wars. The Barbary Coast Wars was those wars that they had with Morocco, Algiers, Libya, and Muscat for the Western world to have free waterway rights, so they could have trade to go on. And they had many wars. As a matter of fact, in one of the Barbary Coast Wars, if you ever see that commercial with the Marines saying that they had that sword, the saber, for the mighty good men, the sword that the Marines carried, they got that when the Bey of Algiers surrendered Algeria to the United States. He gave them that sword, and they've been carrying that ever since. You'll see that even in some of the Marine songs, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, and then in the space where they conquered us. You'll see that also during the Barbary Coast Wars, where some of our founding fathers was U.S. diplomats to the Muslim world, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. They was both U.S. diplomats to the Muslim world, where that out of the first 10 international peace treaties, 5 was done with Muslim countries. Morocco was the first country to acknowledge America's freedom and independence. It is the longest standing peace treaty with the United States today. And within that, they brought in Algiers, Libya, Muscat, which is Oman, Libya, and Tunisia. Is that North African group that they brought in to help sign that peace treaty. This is the story that we talked about, the Africans traveling, Mansa Musa's brother, in there. So, but not only out of bigotry that they went in and terrorized West Africa, but they also went for the minerals. They also went for the wealth that the land that they had and the wealth that they controlled. Then when they found that out, they went in and scourged. You know, they found gold, they found other minerals, and you still see it today. That same process, that same concept. We talked a little bit about the Barbary Coast Wars and during that period of time. Now, we could see if you look at history that when the Muslim controlled Spain, we controlled some islands as well. You know, with some of these Virgin Islands, the islands that the English and the British people own today, Muslims had control. And you can see this in the history where everything that the Spaniards had in the Western world, they got it from the Muslims. Because once they conquered the Muslims, the Moors out of Spain, then everything that they had, they started taking over, taking control. You can see in different parts. This is in Puerto Rico, in Old San Juan. This is the fort of the Moors. They call it the fort of the Moors. And the fort that's, the wall that's facing the ocean, you got this old Arabic strip written on the wall. Then you come downtown in the Old San Juan, there's this restaurant that has this Arabic script written on there. You see it if you travel throughout St. Thomas or any other Virgin Islands, you can see the arch work that still exists there. Aruba is an Arabic name, you know, and if you come into Aruba through a ship, you see they come into a building that was like an old masjid. You can see the water that they have for wudu. You can see these other things that exist all throughout. Another group that came through the Spanish Inquisition, as we said earlier, was the Melungeons. They wound up living in the Appalachian Mountains of Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. There's reports that Elvis Presley's mother was a Melungeon. Abraham Lincoln's mother was Melungeons. And these Melungeons still exist today, all throughout Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee. Some of them, they're known as the Hillbillies. Another group are a group they're called the Moors of Delaware. They married amongst the Navajo Indians, the indigenous Indians in that area, and they still exist there today. This is a book that was done about them in the 1940s called the Delaware Forgotten Moors, and they still exist today in that area. In American history, we find 4 types of Muslims being recorded or documented about. That is Muslims as scholars, Muslims as leaders, Muslims as entrepreneurs, and Muslims are people that were being proud of their faith and living their faith. And we'll talk about a few of them in there. Now, once again, you know, I was taught in American books that the Africans that were brought here, we had no culture, no history. And even today, some of the current politicians try to make you think that it was good for us to be brought here and being enslaved. One of the first scholars or Hafiz in the United States was Job ibn Dujalo. He talked about his story, how he got captured and enslaved, and he was they did a book about him in 1968, but in 1734 they wrote his autobiography. He told his story, how he got captured, where he was lived at. He was born in Timbuktu, wound up coming and living in Timbuktu, and he was very much like a scholar. He wrote the Quran 3 times from memory. To the far right, or to your left, is Omar ibn Said, another Senegalese. He wrote his life story. He made Hajj. He was a Haji before he was captured and enslaved. He was educated. He was a teacher. He was a Sufi scholar as well. He used amulets in some of his writings for protections and for signs and different energy. Another personality was Bilal Muhammad. He wrote, he's come up out of what they call the Sea Islands out of Georgia, coastal part of Georgia. There was 2 islands that Muslims led and was rulers of in the early 1800s. One was called Sapo Island, and the other one was called St. Simon Island. Both of them, these 2, one was led by Bilal Muhammad, one was led by Salih Bilal, and they led over 450 people on each one of these plantations. Now, how they was able to, and there's reports about Salih Bilal, when he died, he gave the Shahada, saying there's no God but Allah, Muhammad is his messenger. There's reports, and one of his descendants is Robert Abbott, who started the Chicago newspaper, Defender newspaper, African-American newspaper in Chicago. Bilal Muhammad was a plantation manager of that. When the War of 1812, he told his slave master, we got 80 men that was of his faith that will help defend this island. You cannot count on the Christians that you own. So he identified at least 80 men on that island as being Muslims. There's a report that was done in 1930s where the government went around interviewing them. And they remembered their family praying 3 times a day, saying, Ameen, 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 or Assalamu alaikum. If any of y'all read the book, Servants of Allah by Sylvian Daouf, she talks about them and making that rice cakes, sadaqah, making for donations. But they brought these people, these Senegalese, Gambian people, in to make rice, indigo, and cotton. Rice, they made millions and multi-millions of dollars for these people on the what they call the Gullah Coast. From North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, that coast was the coast that they made this rice. Like Bosnian rice, we like Bosnian, no, this rice, it was like gold, and they made millions and millions of dollars off of this rice. And because the West African knew it would come from the same area, the same savannah type region, so there was that familiarity in the development of that. And they chose these Muslims, and the Europeans or the plantation owners couldn't stay on the islands in the summertime because of mosquitoes. The bugs, man, they was biting, to tear you up. So it left them isolated. But they gave it to these Muslims that who was accountable and responsible. The Quran teaches to be accountable and responsible. So they got these leadership positions because of their faith and their character of their faith. Another personality is Phyllis Wheatley. She was the first African American woman to write poetry. And this was in the 1700s. And she said that when she was in Africa, her name was Fatima. She let them know that she was a Muslim in Africa, but she lost that tradition. And then the last personality is Imam Muhammad. He was the son of Elijah Muhammad, who was a nationalist, but he turned over hundreds of thousands of people into following the Sunnah of Allah, into worshiping Allah during his reign and during his time. So we talked about Job, we talked about Phyllis Wheatley, we talked a little bit about Omar. As Brother Ishmael said, that a lot of this is on our website, is on our museum app, and inshallah we plan on reopening our museum. It'll be in our museum and telling these stories. This is Bilal Muhammad, his writing. He left a 13-page risala instructing the community how to fast, how to pray, holistic living. Imam Muhammad was one of the leaders, early leaders, into moving the community into interfaith work and into worshiping Allah. Now, there's things that we found in America unique to the Western Hemisphere, let me say that, because we found a few of these tombstones in Canada and a couple in Bermuda. This tombstone, I hope you can see it with the tahi, with the one finger on it. This tombstone was the first tombstone that I found. And I found this tombstone in between these two islands led by Bilal Muhammad on Sapo Island and Salih Bilali on the other island. And between those two islands is Route 99 and a plantation cemetery called the Butler Plantation Cemetery, and where I found this tombstone. And it just took me back. Because in Islam, the first time you hear about Bilal ibn Rabah during Prophet Muhammad time, so in Islam. And then saying that, while he was coming out, while he was enslaved, the slave master tortured him. And all he could say was a hard, then he could do nothing. What? Put up the one finger. In our time, we do that now, today, one God. So we found that tombstone, the first one in between these two Bilals in America. I found two Bilals in America in the 1800s as leaders. Then I found the tombstone with the one finger. We found those tombstones from Florida all the way up to Canada, out west of Kansas. And then in American history books, the cemetery scholars, the researchers say that they think it's pointing up to God, pointing up to heaven. But we know as Muslims, it's one God. No matter what you did to me, it's one God. No matter what name I got, it's one God. And we found this tombstone in this town called Muhammad, Illinois. In this town called Muhammad, Illinois, Abraham Lincoln spent the night there. And that's a mixture of this group of people called the Ben Ishmael tribe. the reports of Ben Ishmael tribe, a group of Africans mixed with Melungeons and Muslims and indigenous people, founded these 3 towns, one called Morocco, Illinois, Mecca, Indiana, and Muhammad, Illinois. And they used to make annual journeys into these 3 towns. And in the early 1900s, they used to stop in Indianapolis. And they became known as the unwanted people. Where, you know about Hitler, and Hitler using genetics to get rid of people? Well, they modeled, Hitler then modeled from them. This was the first experiment of using genetics to get rid of these people. They was called the unwanted people. And they pushed them out of that area, and they wound up in the Chicago and Detroit area, where that's some in the early 20th century, some of the early Islamic or pseudo-Islamic groups that started in the area, started because many of them was Ben Ishmael people. Another town. You know, I like to tell people, you know, Americans, and they like that macho man, you know. Muslims in America was not that cowboy. They was camel boys. They was camel boys in America. America hired at least 3 Muslims from around the Middle East. And they brought in 75 camels from Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Sudan, different places to see which was going to be the best camels to go out west. And they did 2 annual journeys. Till Andrew Jackson came in and he demolished it. He stopped it. And so there's one that many Americans we know about. He became known as Hajj Ali, or they call him Hajj Ali. I think his tombstone is in one of these panels. He died, and in Quartz, Arizona, they did a pyramid for his tombstone, and on top of his tombstone, they put a camel on it. You know, and I seen, you know, I'm an old guy, you know, so I watch Cowboys and Indians shows. And so I seen a Cowboy and Indian show that is called the Old Southwestern Trail, and it had these 3 actors acting like Arabs coming up from Sajda. And they calling the guy, hey, hi, Jolly, come on. I said, wow. So they tell these stories, you know. I seen another cowboy picture, Gunsmoke, you know, and Gunsmoke, anybody know about Gunsmoke? You know, the first show, they're going to either go to Kitty, go to the dock, you know, or Festus somebody. But there's one episode, they went to a town called El Qadir. There's a town in America that the famous Muslims saved some Christians from Lebanon, and they named the town after them. They call it El Qadir. So in one of those episodes, he was going to El Qadir. Now, the other Muslim that was part of the camel herd, his name was August Muhammad. He developed this town called Muhammad, Texas. In Texas, go figure. You follow what I'm saying? So, you know, Muhammad, Illinois, and Muhammad, Texas. So, you know, we was not cowboys, we was camel boys. And there's a history that exists, you know, here. And so these are some of the writings of Omar ibn Said that we talked about and his scholarship. Another thing that I want to say, I found, now this is the eastern shore of Maryland. You know, a lot of times people make us think that slavery was down south and that Maryland was not part of that down south. You know, Maryland was part of that Mason-Dixon line. But Maryland, their slavery happened early, 1600s, 1700s. This is why you see Job ibn Dijalo coming in 1730. You see Yarrow Mahmoud, 1750s. You see Kunta Kinte, 1770s. You know, what Maryland wound up doing was when they say that the slave trade stopped in 1808, 1810, somewhere around that time. But that was only the Atlantic slave trade. That's, you know, the Atlantic bringing new, fresh blood people and being enslaved. Maryland, Eastern Shore took over after that. They called it the domestic slave trade. They had enough people that they had enslaved, and they was making enough babies that they didn't need to import no more. Then they started shipping them out. You see, in one of the books, you see the story about a guy named Charles Ball. And he talked about that experience, you know, being shipped up, taken from his family in Maryland, going into Virginia, but escaping and making it back. So now, in this eastern shore of Virginia, you had a couple of waves of slave owners or of slave trade. 1600, 1700, it was a more tobacco was the crop that they was producing. And more Catholic. You know, Catholics still got that, you know, superiority complex, or still was coming out of that Spanish Inquisition mindset, okay? And you can see the difference in St. Mary's County versus Eastern Shore County, okay? The wave that took over on the Eastern Shore was the Quakers. They wound up taking over that area. And then with the Quakers, and in that area, you got what? Frederick Douglass coming out of, Harriet Tubman coming up out of there. And now the African-American leaders come up out of that area, the Eastern Shore area. In the Eastern Shore, what they did, they made these churches. And in the history books, they call this Gothic. What African come out of Africa know anything about Gothic? Come on. You follow what I'm saying? They knew about masjids. Muslims and masjids was dominant there. So you can see the minaret, which they call steeples. You can see the arch in the churches, in the windows. And some of them, they got 2 doors in there. And this is out of their books, you know, because me, I didn't think about that. Yeah, I see, this is normal. But going back and reading the books, they come and found the uniqueness in it and their architectural work. Then it made me go to Sheikh Google and start looking up Gothics, and then some of this Gothic stuff looked like mass Jews. So now I wonder if this was early on that those people, the Gothic was conquered, was Muslims, and then got conquered and forced to Christianity and put those images on the masjids. Allahu Alam. That was just a thought for future investigators. Now, these Gullah people, they call them those Gadala people, those people that believe in Allah. Today, if you look it up, they saw Gullah means the people of God. They'll say the people of God. With them, and many of them was Muslims that they brought in. And they brought some of their Islamic traditions with them. One of them, one of the traditions is that I'm gonna say you want to become a member of the church, or, you know, of their faith. Well, they said before you become a member, you got to go seek God. You got to go to the woods. You got to go to nature. You got to get yourself aligned with God within nature. You got to see God within nature. And then you got to come back with an inspiration. What did you learn? What were you inspired by before they even opened the door to faith? That's like us. Another thing, call and response. You know, and trust me, I just learned this, you know, recently within the last year or so, traveling through these museums. Call and response. In the church, they go, can I get an amen? Teach, brother. You know, can I get an amen, okay? Muslims do the same thing. We started it. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. What? Hey Allah salat, hey Allah salat, hey Allah falah, hey Allah falah. What? Call and respond. Come to prayer. What? Come lively. Right? Come to success. Call and response. Another one. What? Takbir. What? Allahu Akbar, right? Come on. What? Prophet Muhammad, what? See what I'm saying? Call and respond. Then they even showed it in African-American music. You know, and the example that she did was working on a chain gang. Working on a chain gang going, ooh, ah, ooh. You got in the harmony in the music, you know, singing, pardon me. Thank you. And the harmony, you know, you see it all throughout. Another thing that they do, they call it the ring shout. And you know, I used to say this is Islam. But I'm seeing this tradition pass through different cultures. The indigenous Native Americans, Muslims, and African Americans of this Gullah coast. And this ring shout consists of making tawaf 7 times, circuits, counterclockwise. They couldn't go on Hajj, so they make tawaf. They call it the ring shout. I seen in one video with the young kids, they was teaching them in the ring shout, they had their hands up like this, going around. I said, oh my God, this is purely Islam. This is Salat. This is opposition in Salat. And they was making a ring shout. Not to say that they know, but there's a couple of museums that we went into that they explained and brought. Now, Muslims as leaders, like I said, they brought in the Mandingos, Muslims were blacksmiths, iron workers, and then plantation managers, and so this is just some of the articles that they talk about. And Islam was in Africa 500 years. 500 years. Christianity did not come to these Portuguese came with it. It was in East Africa, but it was not the Western concept of Christianity. It was a more monotheist concept. And you saw how they treated us, the Muslims in Ethiopia and everything. We talked about Bilal and his ability to write and lead. Salih Bilali, Abdul Rahman. And each one of these Muslims, when we started, we said that what appears through them is their faith penetrates. They did not lose their faith. They maintained their faith. They maintained their worshiping of Allah all throughout, and all of them. Abdul Rahman, the Prince among slaves, he was tortured for 40 years. For 40 years, he was enslaved, and he was a prince. He was a prince. And so he had to bear out that, and he tried to escape a couple times. Then he just finally surrendered and became a plantation manager and an entrepreneur. And one day, after 40 years, he was selling his vegetables downtown. And he met this European doctor that him and his father took care of when he was a little kid, 40 years before. That doctor recognized him, and they recognized each other. And he was very instrumental in helping him getting his freedom. By 1828, he got his freedom after being enslaved. John Quincy Adams, the president at the time, helped him get his freedom. He went about trying, raising funds for his other family members for his freedom. So this are some of the Muslim leaders that existed. Another one was Usman. He was a leader of what they call the Desert Swamp Muslims out of North Carolina area. Now, Islam in the 20th century, 1900s, came into inner cities as with the concept of freedom, justice, and equality. That's what Islam was. It was a liberating force for many of the African Americans in the inner cities to liberate themselves from the injustices that was prevalent in the society. So we came in as freedom, justice, and equality. One of the first African American leaders during that time was Noble Drew Ali. He came with Islamic ideas. But he first started out with starting a group called the Canaanite Temple. Canaanite, who we know is Canaan today, is Palestine. Okay, and this is the land of Canaan. Okay, the children of Ham were people of color. We were all the same brothers and sisters. Okay, the Canaanite Temple is what he first started with. Then he moved from the Canaanite Temple out of New Jersey and moved into Detroit area. And he said he moved to Detroit area because the people was more receptive to Islam. And some of his early followers was the people that they called the Ben Ishmael people. These were the people, some of the founders of that town called Muhammad, Illinois, Mecca, Indiana, and Morocco, Illinois. It's a group of those people. And each one of these groups we're going to really talk about, most of them, you see an evolutionary growth. You see a seed of Islamic idea. You don't see pure Islam in the actions and deeds and concepts, but you see the seed. Then out of that seed, out of that early development comes a plant or comes a community of Islam, those that are found soon. The example on the Noble Drew Ali, the evolution that came from out of him was brother Imam Ezzeldin. They call Professor Ezzeldin, who came and developed the first Sunni Muslim community in the United States of African American descent. The brother under Noble Drew Ali is the first Muslim imam recorded in the United States. His name was Imam Sati Majid. He was a Sudanese. And there's reports that in the 1920s that he was a leader of over 90,000 Muslims, and from the Detroit, Chicago, and Buffalo area. You'll see the articles about. If you ever hear any story about there was a fatwa that was trying to be put out against an American Islamic organization, it was Imam Sati Majid, who heard from Noble Drew Ali and knew that this was not pure Islam. So when the Al-Azhar trying to get a fatwa put out against Noble Drew Ali's teaching. Another Muslim immigrant that came here was Mufti Muhammad Sadiq. He came here part of the Ahmadiyyan community. And he first came into Philadelphia area, then he wanted to go in the Chicago area, and they developed a community there. And many of the early jazz musicians come up out of that community. And even within that community, you had the development or diversification and evolution of growth out of that community. The next person was Imam Sheikh Dawood. He was a leader of immigrant Muslims and Muslims that worked on the ports in the Brooklyn area. He ran a masjid called the State Street Masjid. Out of Imam Ezzeddin community, Imam Sheikh Dawood's community became Dar Islam out the 70s. This was the early Sunni African American community that grew from us. Then you had Farad Muhammad. He came in the 1929s, developed the Nation of Islam, or what they call Allah's Temple of Islam. And up in the 1930s. Then in 1931, 32, one of his members, early members, went to the extreme and wanted to sacrifice someone. And so they arrested him and arrested Farad and all of them, and it became known, and you could Google it, what they call the voodoo cult. You know, and this is what they described it as, a voodoo cult. And so then he changed the name to the Lost Town Nation of Islam. And by 1934, he transitioned and moved out, and he gave it that leadership to Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad took the teaching, and prior to him leaving, there's reports that Farad Muhammad gave over 25,000 people Islamic names. You can see in some of the census in the 30s and the 40s, the Muslims that came out of the Moorish Science Temple and the Muslims that came out of the Nation of Islam, they called themselves Asiatic Black. So in the census record, you see people listed as Asiatic. You'll see people as Moors. You start seeing different description of them identifying themselves. Now, the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad was a leader of the Nation of Islam, and I want to try to make it descriptive so we can understand, because it's back. When they used to lynch us and have a picnic. It was nothing like killing an African or a person of color. Hatred, bigotry, no freedom. So he called them, your actions are the actions like a devil. He said no more than what Frederick Douglass said, no more than what Benjamin Franklin said. You know, but within there, he came and said, I'm here to clean you up. You know, I'm not here to teach you your religion. I'm just here to clean you up. And he cleaned them up. Drug addicts, criminals, many people. He's credited with cleaning up many people. And he said that the one that's going to come after him was going to teach us your religion. And the leadership that came after him, his son, Mawardi Muhammad, taught the community the Al-Islam. He gave him the Quran. And he gave him the relationship with Allah. And used Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu as the example, as a sunnah. So that part, he told the truth, that seed existed, and now we had the plan. Wali Akram was another African-American leader during the Elijah Muhammad time of the 30s. And all these, there's these three. The third leader was Imam Professor Ezzeddin, who came up out of, now Wali Akram came up out of the Ahmadiyyan community. He left the Ahmadiyyan community and started a Sunni Muslim community. Ezzeddin, at the bottom, he came out of the Moorish Science Temple, and he started a Sunni Muslim community. And that Sunni Muslim community is the community, if you see the picture of the brother that buried Imam Malcolm X, that was Imam Hisham Jabber. He was the imam from out of that community. Now, each one of them looked at coming up with an economic plan. Okay? One of the, Elijah had a plan to do for himself, buy farmland, rental property, trucks, shipping, imported foods, fish products, sardines, fish products from Peru, sardines from Morocco, the bean pie. While the Akron came up with a 10-year economic plan. Imam Azzuddin and his community, they brought land, they took Hijra, they brought land upstate Buffalo and out suburbs of Philadelphia. They have their own land today that really is underutilized. It looks like it could be a camp for Muslims, but it's just underutilized. Another wave of Muslims, or the younger generation of the Muslims out of the 50s and 60s and early 70s, Malcolm X. You know, he was hated and despised. Now he's an American, a world hero. They got streets named after him, schools named after him. They did a postal stamp named after him. You know, they hated him and despised. But he stood up for principles, values, and showing that the human being has the ability to change his ways and his concepts and to find God within his life. Another Imam Yahya Abdul Karim, and his set of brothers that organized what they call Dar Islam. Dar Islam came a Muslim that came out of the 60s and 70s, came up out of Sheikh Dawood. Sheikh Dawood was an old man. So now these are the younger kids now, and they want to do something, want to get involved, get active. They see that the Nation of Islam people are selling products, doing things. So they started selling products, being active, and they was politically involved. And one of the things that you see that the first Muslim woman first woman to try to run for office was Shirley Chisholm. They worked with her. Imam Warthi Muhammad took over the leadership of the Nation of Islam. When he took over that leadership, I think there was 81 tipples or masajids. I'll give it 83. And that was in 1975. By 1982, there was 211 masajids under his leadership. That it grew and expanded by leaps and bounds. Imam Jamil Al-Amin, we knew him, or I knew him as H-Rap Brown. He made the transition to become one of the Muslims in the 70s and became known as Jamil Al-Amin. And from Jamil Al-Amin, he had a community, then he became a part of what they call the new wave of Dar Islam, has been merging with his community. Imam Jamil Al-Amin, his community, one of his contributions that he made to the Muslim community is the Riyada. Every year they have the Muslims from around the United States come together in sports competition and Arabic competition. You know, as one of the reminders of Allah say, what he made his tribes and nations not to despise one another, but to get to know one another. And in America, Allah brought us all here. You know, either through the doors like Joseph, being enslaved in the land of Egypt, whining in the house of Egypt, of Pharaoh, in a great position. Or you came in like Moses. His mother put him in a boat, a little crib, a little boat, for lack of a better word. And what? He immigrated, right? For safety. And he wound up in the house of Pharaoh. So we come in different ships or different ways, but we're here. We're here. You know, and I'm telling you, you know, we see this atmosphere. You know, people want freedom, justice, and equality. You hear about freedom. Some of us get a little freedom. You hear about justice. Some of us get equality. We get a little equality. But the greatest need is what? Justice. Fair play and to be just. Allah says he's a just God. So these are some of the leaders out the 30s and 40s through the African-American experience. I think I spoke about each one of them. I talked about Imam Warthi Muhammad and his leadership. And this is just showing the growth and the development of the community and an interfaith. Now, we also find in American history that we talk about the entrepreneurs. Muslims are entrepreneurs, businessmen. One of the first ones that I found in our American history is Venture Smith. He was brought here at the age of 8 years old. He was captured and enslaved. And he told them people, my name is Bakir Toro. We come from the Abu Bakr region, Dubakar River region area of Guinea. So while he was enslaved in Connecticut, he got his freedom, bought his wife's freedom, bought a couple of his children's freedom, and he wound up owning over 100 acres of land. Another one that was close to us, Yarl Mahmoud. You can hear stories about Yarl Mahmoud in Georgetown. He was an industrialist human being. He made knitted fish nets. He made, he weaved. He had a hauling business. He was a fisherman. And he invested in different properties. He had owned property in Georgetown. Yarl Mahmoud is one of the few Africans that they even did any pictures or painted of him. One hangs up in Philadelphia Historical Society, and one is in Georgetown Public Library in D.C. One of Yarl's neighbors was Joseph Moore. He had a business, a grocery store, a little 5 and dime store, we would call it that. We talked about Abdul Rahman. Elijah Muhammad, he built an $80 million empire. Industrious, and I strongly suggest for those that are alive is inspired with inspiration, to serve the community, to serve humanity is a greater deed. If we could create jobs, we bring in more people that maybe listen to our words, to our actions. The problem with the Nation of Islam at that time, we built on the physical. We had the material things, we had the physical, but our heart and mind and spirituality was warped. So we had to die so we could live again. We had to resurrect our consciousness, resurrect our heart and our relationship with Allah, so that the physical things, the material things, we realize now is nothing but an illusion. Man created this. This is nothing but a man idea. Every building we see, everything we see is nothing but a man idea, a man concept. But so many of us get caught up in the physical, not understanding that the spiritual light is the greater light, and that is the light Allah is calling us to. Okay, this is a tombstone of Venture Smith in Connecticut. In Connecticut, this was in the 1700s. They believed in life after death, so that's why it's a head with wings on it. And he told him his name was Bakir Toro. The map shows you the river where you come up out of Guinea. The photograph of Yarl and some of the statements of Yarl. There's more stories about Yarl, who was a slave owner, and his different investments that he did. This is the other painting of Yarl Mahmoud that hangs up in Georgetown. There was a book that was written about him from the slave ship to Harvard. Some of his descendants wound up going to Harvard. Another personality that's well known is the Prince Among Slaves, Abdul Rahman. He was known for having moral character, being his honesty and his integrity during the slave days, being oppressed. So don't let these times, these changes that we're faced with today, the challenges that we're faced with today, keep your heart pure in the relationship with Allah and that Quran is guidance, because this world's life is nothing but illusion. Nothing but illusion. Man, I'm telling you. Well, Allah, that's one thing I think about the Nation of Islam. I live the illusion. All these material things, physical things, and then the reality of it is the importance of our relationship with Allah. Now, some of the things that the Nation of Islam did and impact that they done. One, in the Elijah Muhammad days, the 30s and 40s and 50s, African American people was called colored, Negro, so-called Negro, coons, and everything else. And if you call somebody black, up into the late 60s, I was around, you call me black, we're going to fight. That means fighting words, okay? But Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam came out and made it popular and accessible. Where that James Brown, the entertainer, came out with a song, "Say It Loud, I'm Black and Proud." The Black Panthers came with Black Pride. Black power, so it motivated and stimulated. So that was a transition. They made being Muslim popular. Look at the change that Malcolm X had to do and Muhammad Ali had to do, be subjected to, and the Muslims in the military, So they helped made it a little bit more easier. And like I said, there was concept of freedom, justice, and equality. And this was the spirit that we took on. And the Nation of Islam helped improve many lives of many of the African American people, from eating to living better. And the Nation of Islam produced some strong leaders. Elijah Muhammad, Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Worthy Muhammad, and many others that they helped produce. So you judge a tree by the fruit that is bare. And looking at his fruit, he did pretty good, you know? But going with society, they'll tell us something different. And then the carrot cake and the bean pie. That bean pie is as popular as American apple pie. From Canada to Africa, these people want that bean pie. You know, we haven't learned to market it. You know, we haven't learned to market ourselves and our energy. And to capture the spirit and the energy to help win over friends. Now, Muslims in the service of our country. You know, early on, you know, we got Muslims as judges, congressmen, congresswomen, state senators, mayors, elected officials, police officers, U.S. Armed Forces, firefighters, doctors, and teachers. You know, first they was African-American Muslims, but now Muslims from all around the world. If you look at the panels, you know, you see the contributions that Muslims from every country have made. One of them that you can see politically, I admire is the Somalian community. There's over 12 people that they got elected officials all around the country, from Oregon, Washington State, Maine, and Minnesota. And 2 Muslim mayors, women mayors, one in Oregon and one in Maine. And other state elected officials, Palestinians, are certainly congresswomen, other elected officials, mayors, Pakistanis are as well. You know, and Allah say what? He made us tribes and nations not to despise one another, but to get to know one another. We all got certain different talents that we can bring to the table and that we can learn from each other. You know, we have to be careful that they do not divide us. We have to come together. We like this fall weather, right? Look at the beauty of the different colors of the trees. We marvel at it. Oh, y'all, we'd be in paradise looking at some of it. And the different shades and types of trees. Oak trees, maple trees, pine trees. It's the same as human beings. You know, and this is the spirit that we need to help to foster, you know, and help them to understand that we're part of the American fabric. This is our country. You know, we're in American sports, all professional sports, NFL, NBA, soccer, fencing, baseball. We're in all aspects of American sports and as well as American music. And Sudanese, Moroccans, you know, everybody is helping to this mosaic of the Muslim American experience. The first Muslim mayor of the U.S. city, the first Muslim judge in the U.S. city, the first Muslim chaplain in the U.S. Army. These are some of the things that under the leadership of Imam Worthy Muhammad happened. And now they're everywhere. Muslim federal, there's a Muslim federal elected judges. There's a male. There's a Muslim federal elected female judge. They're everywhere. We're everywhere. We're involved. There's Muslim mayors. There's a Muslim mayor in Pasadena or outside of Patterson. He's been a mayor for 18 years. 18 years. And in there's over 3 other city council people that are Muslims. Another thing that with Worthy Muhammad, what he did with the community, he moved us from calling ourselves black. So, man, you're not black. Black is black. Black jackets, you know. African Americans are different shades of colors. And so what he did, he said, because we was having a cultural crisis or identity crisis, and he said that, look, be like the Italians and other people. And he said the Italians got the name from a hero that they described. He said the name, I don't know the name. And he described others. He said, why don't we take the name Bilal, call ourselves Bilalians. Bilal ibn Rabah was an African that was a slave and he came to Islam. There's that comparison with us, you know, to identify yourself. And for a few years, they call themselves Bilalians. That there's a judge in the United States today that on her birth certificate, she's a Bilalian. And there's a few others that are Bilalians today. So what happened is that he said, okay, you don't want to call yourself Bilalians. He said, call yourself African Americans. So what happened, Jesse Jackson, Douglas Wilder, and other African American leadership came and met in Chicago and said, we're now going to call ourselves African Americans. And this happened in the 80s. And this is when that transition, so that is that influence. Another influence that he came up with the concept AMCOP, collective buying and purchasing. What we see today is Sam Company, Costco's, are some of the companies. Shea butter is another product that they introduced to the American public that wasn't around till he came out with it, and then they got shea butter everywhere. And my brother came up, so I guess that's a sign. So I'm going to be Speedy Gonzalez now. Okay, this is the 21st century. You know, some of the judges, the first Muslim judge of the 20th century was Judge Hassan, a local judge here in Maryland, who is retired. The IS stand came about. You had Judge Hassan came about. You had that mayor that I talked about in New Jersey, Prospect Park, New Jersey. 18 years a mayor and still counting. And he got 3 elected city council members that are Muslims. First Muslim congressman, Keith Ellison, 2006. First Muslim woman in space was the Iranian Muslim sister in space. One of the diplomats, Afghanistan diplomat, Khalilzad. Second Muslim congressman, Andre Carson, he still holds office as a congressman. Imam Morty Muhammad passed away in 2008. Muslim elected mayor in Connecticut, Saad Anwar, he's now a state senator in Connecticut. And we've got a lot of Muslims that are state senators around. One of the people's champ, Muhammad Ali, he passed away in 2016. Oscar-winning Muslim, Mahershala Salah Ali, won an Oscar. Muslim mayor. This is a Muslim sister that's a mayor in Maine, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see, my eyes can see. Portland, Maine. Yes, she's a Muslim mayor, in Maine. Muslim sister. Go, this is you're the woman, man. This was 2019. Matter of fact, 2019 was a wave of Muslims being elected. This is another Muslim sister in Montgomery Township in New Jersey. Sadaf Jaff. 2019, the first Muslim woman, Congresswoman, Eliane Omar. First Muslim Palestinian Congresswoman, Rashida Tlaib. You have the first Muslim state senator in Virginia, my sister Hashim. In 2019, you had 3 Muslim mayors elected in Dearborn area of Michigan. Bilal Bazi, Amir Ghalib, Abdullah Hamad, all of them are elected Muslim mayors. You had Nashif Majid elected in North Carolina House of Representatives, 2019. My sister Hassan in Minnesota House of Representatives, 2019. So you see that there's a wave of Muslims that got elected in 2019. Allahu A'lam how many more got elected. You got another state senator, Muslim in Oregon. These are Somalians, the first Muslim NFL coach from Lebanese. Muslim federal judge, first Muslim federal judge. All of the rest of them were state or local judge. He was federal judge. First Muslim chaplain in the U.S. Armed Forces. First Muslim chaplain in the Maryland National Guard. Muslim state senator, young brother in Minnesota. You got 2 of them in the House of Representatives in Ohio. And this is in 2022. So you see Muslims are engaged and involved. The Muslim state representative in California, in Connecticut. And Imam Muhammad Majid being elected into the International Religious Freedom Commission. The first Muslim federal judge. Now the Muslim mayor out of Minnesota. Muslim state elected official. So that is the story of a brief summary of the Muslims in America. I hope that this will play. Just take about maybe 5 minutes. This is.
Did you know that the first documented Muslim in America was an African explorer named Esteban Cook? Did you know that Melendres were Europeans, some of whom were Muslim, were reported to have fled the Spanish Inquisition and settled in America in the 1800s? These and many other amazing facts about the history of Muslims in America have been preserved for the nation's benefit at the America's Islamic Heritage Museum. This is our story.
Alhamdulillah. This is our developer, designer, and the voiceover.
1946, which stands for Collections and Stories of American Muslims, was started as a traveling exhibit under the leadership of President Amir Muhammad.
I grew up in Connecticut in the mid-1950s. French Americans, Spanish Americans, Puerto Rican Americans, Black Americans, Italian Americans, Scandinavian people that we identified them by their culture or the heritage that they came from. And some of them were my best friends that taught me and showed me the humanness that we're all one.
Amir's uniquely diverse upbringing would serve as a foundation for him later in life. He joined the Nation of Islam after making a decision to change his life for the better, and then transitioned to Orthodox Islam under the leadership of Imam Muhammad.
My life was somewhat like Malcolm's life, a very street life, and I felt that there was a need for me to make a change. I became a Muslim, joined the Nation of Islam in 1974, and over the years I evolved and grown and learned to read the Quran every day. The Quran teaches us how to be a better human being.
Amir's love of knowledge and diversity led him to open and own a bookstore where he interacted with Muslims of many nationalities, but he noticed very quickly that most were ignorant of the contributions of Muslims who paved the way before them. This would inform his mission and his life's work.
I saw that there was a disconnect with the Muslim community, that there was a need for them to understand that Muslims have been a part of American fabric since its beginning, since its inception. And I saw that they did not see that connection, nor did they see the African American Muslim as being Muslim. We developed an exhibit, a travel exhibit, maybe 40 pieces. We traveled all around the country with this exhibit, and each year was growing.
Not only did they travel to major cities inside the USA, the traveling exhibit was invited to present amongst dignitaries and heads of state around the globe, and went to places such as Qatar, Bermuda, Nigeria, and more.
Then we make it expand. I mean, we did a lot of universities. We've been to Harvard 3 times, Stanford, University of Pittsburgh, University of North Carolina. I mean, so many schools, so many MSAs. We did a lot of work. I think we did 2 exhibits at a couple of synagogues.
After traveling for 12 years around the country and the world, and placing exhibits in national museums such as the Smithsonian, CSAM finally found a permanent home in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and opened the America's Islamic Heritage Museum. As the museum expanded its reach, so did its collection of amazing facts and artifacts covering every period of time in this country, from the 1300s to now.
Did you know that Muslims was not cowboys in this country? They were camel boys. There was over 75 camels that they brought over to America, go out west, and they hired 3 Muslims. Even one of those Muslims established a town, did you know? In World War I, there was 550 people with the last name Muhammad. Fought for America, fought for you and me, my father, and everybody else. Did you know one of the first Muslim scholars, Hafiz, in the United States, arrived here in 1730? Manhattan, Coney Island, was established and founded by a European Muslim, Anthony Van Jameson.
Today, the museum is not only a pillar and stronghold in the Southeast D.C. community, it is inspiration for tourists, Muslim or not, who visit from around the world.
My name is Ruzet Valle, and I am from Guatemala City, Guatemala.
My name is Brett Brownstein. I'm from New York.
My name is Jose. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm Yusuf from Al-Fatah Academy.
The Islamic heritage and the Muslim practices were something I didn't really know much about it. I got to learn deeper understanding on the impact and how valuable all their efforts have been to American society.
It helps you realize of what big accomplishments we've made and different things we've done.
The impact of the museum is great for the community in a positive way. We've been told by several people in the community, especially some of the Muslim sisters, how being here is a protection for them, because we do so many community outreach programs, like feeding of the children and giving out the free food on each month, and then we give out free turkeys right before Thanksgiving. She said, by us being as charitable as we are to the community, then the community looks on Muslims in a more positive light, and it's a big protection for her.
Something really interesting that I found about during my visit to this museum was the Quran written in Spanish, since there is a very good exhibition with the different types of Qurans, there are different versions of it in different languages. It felt very heartwarming to see one written in my mother language and to see how valuable it is for this community.
I learned a lot about this neighborhood, the people that live here, how long they've all been here, and how they, how they interact within this community, what it means to them. And I see a lot of people coming in, getting snacks, students from schools, and it shows like a real community. Everyone kind of knows each other, depending, like, it doesn't matter what age. Everyone seems to be interacting and to be friends with each other, so it's very cool to see that. I haven't really seen neighborhoods like that.
When they be having the little Muhammad thing for Muslims, I help them, they set up the whole thing, set up the food stuff, make my plate, and then when everybody else come, they make their plate, and everybody just eat.
I came in, you kept telling me, keep going to school, get good grades. I was a bad kid for real, but it motivated me to be a good kid.
I really appreciate that because he did that for everybody, and he a good man.
Thank you for letting me come here every day. He kept the food and the little out-of-school program going every day, and let me work and volunteer with this program that he had going on over the weekend. I thank him for a lot and keep me motivated and changing my lifestyle around.
This museum will teach you a lot and will benefit from you if you ever talk to a Muslim, if you're not a Muslim, or if you are a Muslim, you'll know what has happened in our lifetime and what we've gone through. This museum will show you, like, from a different point of view, so if you're not Muslim, it'll show, like, how, what we've been through.
It was an eye-opening experience, and I really hope to come back one day and see how much it has grown since Islamic heritage has not only impacted in the past, but I'm pretty sure and certain that it's working very hard to provide a brighter future.
Today, we seek to rebuild into a state-of-the-art facility. Our future consists of two spaces. One, a technologically advanced exhibit space, and two, a community service space to better serve our communities. Support the America's Islamic Heritage Museum. Go to aihmuseum.org.
Alhamdulillah. I got one more. If you don't mind, bear with me. This is like this one is shorter. And this one's about the design. We hired a design company to make it more interactive. So I think I'll talk while this is going, because I think we got time that's coming close. Bismillah ar-Rahman. But we have the second aspect of the program, reason why we're coming out, is to tell our story. Muslim American story is an expansive story. So what we wanted to do, one is to learn the story about MCC, that history story, then your personal family or friend story. A story that may open up a business in the 50s or the 60s or some experience. So we have a sheet that you can sign up, put your phone number, email, and identify if it's a masjid story or a family story. I see Brother Habib got his hand up. We got a few minutes time for a couple of questions.
Maybe one or two because we gotta go to Love.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
What are they gonna sign?
I just wanted to testify to Brother Amir. We studied at American Muslim Council. He was working with me as an intern at that time. Our Abdurrahman Alamudi gave us a job to do a list of all the Muslims because we didn't have the census. That's how we got to meet, and that's how this project started. Correct me if I'm wrong.
A little adjustment, but yes, it started with AMC. And from bringing in AMC, the Muslim political leadership was writing me out.
There you go.
And I was not the intern, I was the office manager.
There you go.
So my first book, now I'll bring that up real quick.
It's okay.
No, I want to bring this up.
I wanted to thank you and let them know that MCC was part of your first support because I was there for them.
Yes. And once one of my first book that I started out, I asked my boss for a loan. Would loan me some money. He said, Brother Amir, I'm broke. And okay, if he had it, he would, So I started to go out his office door. Wait a minute. His broke ain't my broke. Yo, what you got, bro? What can you do? He wrote me a check for $3,000 and called the company and helped get it done a lot cheaper. So, look, trust in your Lord. Move out in faith. Trust in your Lord. Yes, ma'am. You had a question? Yes.
My question is, if we've been around for so long, how come there's a bunch of people who don't know anything about Islam?
Can I take that one a little bit?
Okay, if we've been around so long, and Muslim history in America, if I'm correcting you right? Why do a lot of people don't know? Well, Allah said blindness, right? The heart is blind. They close out. And religious bigotry. My God is a better God. And matter of fact, I tell you the truth, and I'm going to let Khalil say it. One of the best khutbahs I heard. May Allah have mercy on it. May Allah take this in the best of light. Okay? The Imam said that the problem with the Western world is that for the African American people and the people of color, the white man is their God. Okay? And for the white man, the Jew is their God. And you can see that. Now, how are we going to get that to change? Allahu Alam.
There you go.
Allahu Alam. We just got to keep doing good works, speak the word to the right, and service the community. And hope we can win hearts that way.
And just to finish it, before Sister Nadira, who's my teacher, raised my hand, definitely get a chance. But it's a great question, young sister, and I'm glad you asked it because it's a good closing question that we can have. What this brother Amir, and actually I would put Sister Nadira who raised her hand, so we got to give her a chance, but these are actually pioneers who have been literally fighting with their blood and their tears and their families, and they've been actually fought by the U.S. government. And this is the history that's not necessarily taught, but these black people that he talked about, many times they rose big cities and big, great agriculture. And they built what we call Black Wall Street. We built major things. And every time, so what you see, what's going on in Gaza, what happened in Gaza, it happened to the African Americans first. It happened in a different way, but everyone who's seen as a threat to power, they make sure that they subjugate it. So it's an intentional fight by people with power, right? So our job really is actually, and here's why we're here. We're here, we look at this masjid here, and mashallah, I see so many shades. And I'm really happy to see that, right? And I've come to MCC, I grew up Muslim, so 20 years ago, I didn't see this kind of shade here. But what we have to do now with the coming elections and all of that, is that now we have to teach these people what it means to be Muslim. Right? And what that means is that we're not worried about the power, right? Or the status, right? But we have to tell our story. And the way we tell our story is by every single one of us playing our part. So what that means is we will probably get subjugated again if we ever rise because they see us as a threat. We know the power like no one else knows it. What you have is resources. And here's what Allah has done. all of it is wealth. All of it is rizq. We might have the institutional knowledge. This brother is an encyclopedia. Sister Nadira is an Islamic party fighting for, y'all don't even know. There are people in here who literally shed their blood and family, okay? What we have to do is not look down on each other as if what the other doesn't have is the reason why they're down. Because we've experienced that. They say, why are the black people, why aren't they? We had all the things that you see you have, and they tore it apart. They literally, with violence and with mind control. So today, you can be one of those people, right? And I want you to be one of those people. Hopefully you're back. Hopefully you're in the youth groups, because I'll be back. What we're doing is we're coming together so that we can tell the story and lead in the story. And the last part is, when we tell the story this time, it's not going to be the positions that they gave us. But Muslims have actually, we're going to talk about how Salah changes character and how our concept of marriage changed character. It's time for us to lead and be the standard. And that's the deal. So I have to give Sister Nadira the floor because she is a pioneer as well. And my my teacher, and I'm very reverent and respectful for my teachers, my middle school teacher.
You
mentioned about the new building that's being constructed. I had the opportunity to visit First Museum in Southeast DC maybe a couple times, and but you didn't mention when or where. So I'm really interested in knowing when it will be constructed. I mean, what's the projected time? Oh, alhamdulillah. Yeah, I was saying this is not on. I don't think.
It's low. It's low. It's low.
Test, test. Okay.
Oh, should I just stand up?
All right.
This is for the live stream.
I think I
I don't think you can.
We can hear.
I think I heard you. Sister Nadira asked where the museum is going to be located, projected time for the completion of it, right?
Yes.
Was it a third one?
No, I don't think so. I was just mentioning that.
Okay, all right, mashallah. Allahu alam to that, all three, all of it, okay? My aspiration is a multi-million-dollar project, okay? And we only got $2, all right? Alhamdulillah, money's coming, but it's going to take your help and your support and your friends' help and support. Prayers, finance. I think there's a cash box back there somewhere. You can send in a check, card. We're trying to finish up the first phase to start within January. And it'll take eight months to complete that first phase, which is going to have a little theater space, interactive space, and a community space. We looked at it's going to take, for completion, a 2-year project. The second phase of the space is a space where we're going to do our community work, the food giving, the after-school program, and the service in the community. So we're looking at a 2-year process. So we need the funds.
Amir, I'll see you later.
Mashallah Habib.
So I know they're about to pray. So in closing, we just want to make sure, reiterate again, that the AIH Museum, you're right, it's not on really. The AIH Museum, you can go to aihmuseum.org. Make sure you sign up. We actually have a sign up for updates for anything. We'll be back, inshallah, to do the history. What we believe in is collaboration. So we're going to do your history, and just bring as many people out. You can come ask questions. We'll work with the pioneer from MCC. We'll be doing that with institutions around the Maryland area and beyond. And inshallah, what you saw in that video is it's not just a museum just to tell stories. It's also to live the character of a Muslim. If you saw those people were impacted by the way that Brother Amir actually enacts his Islam, giving charity, helping people change their lives. And that's what we have to do. And we can't do it without everyone. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
It sounds like Tula Khatami. They are Kafi. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum.